No cross, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any juror have a question for this witness? All right. Do we need to keep her further?
No, sir.
But need her further?
No, thank you.
All right.
No, Your Honor.
You're excused. Thank you for being here. Call your next witness.
State calls William Cornegay.
Come on up here, please. If you face the clerk, raise your right hand and be sworn.
You swear affirm testimony about giving faith, truth, whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. Microphone, please, sir.
Please introduce yourself and spell your last name.
My name is William Cornegay, Kornegay, and I'm a forensic specialist with the city of Tallahassee.
How long have you been with TPD?
Approximately 24 years
And have you always been a forensic specialist?
with the city, correct.
What are your duties as a forensic specialist?
Document crime scenes, collect evidence, preserve evidence, and process evidence.
All right. Did you assist Joanne Maltese in the collection of evidence in reference to a scene on Trescott Drive on July 18th, 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And what time did you arrive at the crime scene?
12 o'clock.
What was the status of the forensic examination at the time that you arrived?
It had already been in progress when I arrived. And I believe it was pretty much, it had gone through its process, and I was at the tail end of it.
Okay. What role did you have at the scene as far as processing items or
At that-
collecting?
At that scene, I assisted Ms. Maltese with processing a vehicle that was in the garage for latent prints and basically doing eye search on the scene for other evidence.
All right. Did you locate any fingerprints?
No, ma'am.
All right. Did you, we put the cart a little bit before the horse on this, but did you swab the doorknobs for potential DNA?
No, ma'am.
All right. Was Joanne Maltese responsible for doing that?
She was a primary, yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you note whether or not the doors were locked to the residence?
I don't believe I noted at that particular time, I didn't have any involvement with the residents inside.
You did not go inside?
I believe there might have been an open door in the garage, but I don't remember anything that was processed inside the house.
All right. By the time you arrived at the crime scene, the door to the garage was open, meaning the access to the house?
I believe it was.
Okay. Did you look for casings at the crime scene?
I did.
And was part of your job to look around the yard area, the driveway area for the presence of casings?
Correct.
Also in the garage?
I looked as much as I could within the scene, yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you find any?
No, ma'am.
Are you familiar with firearms?
I am.
What are the possible explanations, assuming a firearm was fired, for why there would not be the presence of casings?
Could be
I'm gonna object with speculation.
overruled. Go ahead. It could be a revolver. It could be a semi-automatic that could malfunction.
All right. Why would a revolver not produce a casing?
They would have to be manually ejected from the weapon.
All right. So when a revolver is fired, the casing does not eject?
Not automatically.
Okay. And a semi-automatic does eject a casing, correct?
If it functions correctly.
All right. And a third scenario that you didn't suggest is somebody could have picked them up.
That's the third one, yes, ma'am.
All right. Did you attend the autopsy in this case?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you collect any items of evidence from the autopsy?
I did.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as 167 and 168. Do you recognize these items?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
How do you recognize them?
The packaging is our packaging, the handwriting's my handwriting, and the seal that's on the envelope packaging is my seal with my initials and 3 digits.
And do the items appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as when you encountered them at the autopsy of Mr. Martel?
Yes, ma'am.
What are these items?
They are, my understanding, projectiles from a handgun.
Okay, and from where were these items collected?
These were actually received from Dr. Clark, who removed them from the victim.
From the victim's body.
Yes, ma'am.
So for this time, I'd ask to move into evidence 167 and 168.
Any objection?
None from Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
To be admitted without objection. Good night.
167. One moment, please, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross?
None from Mr. Garcia.
No cross, Your Honor.
All right. Any juror have a question of this witness? All right. If not, you can step down. Do we need to keep him further?
No, sir.
Might need him further.
No objection.
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused. Thank you for being here. Free to go about your business. Call your next witness.
State call Sean Yao.
Yes.
Excuse me, please, can you sworn, please?
You swear from testimony about giving this case to be true, full truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please.
Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Robert Sean Yao. The last name is spelled Y-A-O.
All right, Mr.
How
Yao.
do you spell Sean? There's a couple ways of doing that.
Sean is spelled like it sounds, S-H-A-W-N.
All right, sir, how are you employed?
I am the current forensic supervisor at the Tallahassee Police Department.
And what are your duties at the Tallahassee Police Department?
Currently, as a forensic supervisor, I perform the day-to-day operations of the unit, ensuring that there are forensic specialists available to respond to requests for assistance for crime scene processing or forensic examinations for the city of Tallahassee. I also respond when needed to go ahead and assist and help process scenes or to offer any kind of advice or assistance to my forensic specialists on the scene.
How long have you been so employed?
I've been with TPD for almost 6 years. I started in November of 2013.
What about before that?
Prior to that, I was a senior crime laboratory analyst in the crime scene section of the Tallahassee Regional Operations Center Crime Laboratory at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
How long did you do that?
I did that for 19 years.
All right, and could you tell us a little bit about your training and education in the area of forensic examinations?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in microbiology from Auburn University. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in criminology from the Florida State University. And I have a Master's in Criminal Justice Administration from Southern Columbia University. At FDLE, upon hiring, I went through a very rigorous training program to prepare me for the collection, preservation, and collection of physical evidence with regards to the various forensic disciplines that FDLE has. This is training in the collection, recognition, and preservation of things like latent prints, firearms, DNA, toxicology, computer evidence recovery, and a variety of other more specialized trainings to enable me to do what's known as crime scene analysis or forensic crime scene analysis, which is what my certification was in. Trained in the documentation and collection of forensic entomology evidence, which is insect evidence, forensic archaeology and anthropology, the recovery of buried bodies, buried remains, and surface skeletal remains, bloodstain pattern analysis, trajectory analysis, hazardous weapons and weapons of mass destruction, responses to scenes for hazardous materials, environment, and a variety of other training. The training for primary takes about a year. Textbook learnings, practical examinations, as well as going to specialty courses, and then going through a supervised casework period where I made the decisions and processed the scene under the supervision of a certified analyst. At the end of about a year, you're certified to respond and perform independent casework as a crime scene analyst with FDLE. And then the training after that is continues from there on throughout your entire career.
You mentioned trajectory analysis. What is trajectory analysis?
There are two forms that we utilized in my training that I was trained to do. One is bullet path documentation. Bullet path documentation is the proper form and technique to document how bullets pass through objects and where they go. In order to do a trajectory analysis, which allows an examiner to take the documentation and the evidence that I preserved and determine The most probable point of origin of the projectile, where it originated, based upon its terminus, as well as other items of physical evidence that were present at the scene.
All right, and did you conduct any analysis in reference to the trajectory on the case that we're here about today?
No, I did not.
All right. Have you reviewed some items of evidence in order to consult regarding the trajectory in the case that we're here about today?
Yes, I did.
What items did you review in preparation for your testimony today?
I was present on scene at the time of the primary processing. I also reviewed Forensic Specialist 2 Joanna Maltese's report, as well as the medical examiner report. I took a look at the photographs that that FS2 Maltese took, as well as the sketches that she created in conjunction with her examination.
All right, and is trajectory analysis a topic upon which you have previously been qualified as an expert?
Not in the analysis per se to determine the point of origin, but in bullet path documentation and evaluation of those bullet paths.
All right, and do you have any opinion about the bullet path in this case?
Then we can stop our,
If you wish, before Dyer.
there's something I want to bring to the court's attention. Inspector.
We'll let the jury step out. All right, everybody be seated. Take a proffer of this testimony. Captain.
Mr. Yao, I asked you to review the evidence in this case and offer me an opinion on whether or not the evidence is more consistent with the shooter in this case being a taller individual versus a shorter individual. We're talking about the difference between 6'1" and like 5'4"-ish. Did you review the evidence and formulate an opinion as to the bullet path in this case?
In looking and based upon the deposition testimony I gave previously, I took a look at the medical examiner's report because I had never seen the deceased, nor the injuries, nor a report on what type of injuries it had. During the deposition, I testified that based upon the height of the projectile hole in the window, that anybody it would be consistent with both a short as well as a tall shooter. So in looking at the injuries to the deceased, and in assuming things that were brought forth in the deposition, assuming that the individual is firing in a normal manner rather than in some weird manner of holding the firearm, a normal extended arm shot into the window, and assuming that the deceased was sitting in an upright position and looking out the window or looking toward the shooter at the time the shot was fired. Using those assumptions, based upon the evidence that's present and what I was able to see, the injury and the hole in the window is more consistent with somebody of a taller stature being 6 foot or higher, or close to 6 foot, rather than somebody being shorter.
And how do we know that from the evidence that you just listed?
The height of the hole that's in the window is approximately 49 inches from the floor of the garage. If you look at a standard 6'1" person, their approximate shoulder height is somewhere around 58 inches. If you just as a standard or as a general rule of thumb, or if you measure somebody approximately that height, somebody about 5'4" is going to be significantly shorter. If somebody fires in a normal course of manner with the arm extended with a pistol, somebody that's short, where their arm shoulder height is approximately 48 inches or 49 inches from the ground, is going to have a more direct or parallel line to where the hole is in the window. Versus somebody that's taller, it's going to be more of a downward angle. The initial projectile strike that goes into the deceased strikes the left cheek. It's a slightly downward angle from right to left where the projectile ends up behind the left ear. There's pseudo-stippling around the injury, which is consistent with the breaking of the window. So because of the downward angle, if you assume that the person is sitting upright at the time the shot was fired, connected to the hole in the window is more consistent with somebody being taller firing at a downward angle into the passenger compartment rather than a shorter person firing where it would be almost parallel. That strike would have been more straight across and into the deceased rather than at a downward angle into the deceased.
right, thank you. That's the proffer, Your Honor.
And the defense has its objection to that.
Yes, Judge.
All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna call another witness, Ms. Kappelman. We'll let Mr. Yao stay to the end of our day. Depose him at the end of the day after the jury's gone. We'll recall Mr. Yao tomorrow. All right?
Yes,
So take 5 minutes and you can call your next witness.
And my general surgery residency was also at USF in Tampa.
All right, and did you have an occasion to treat a patient by the name of Daniel Markel?
Yes, I did.
And what was Mr. Markel's condition upon admission to the hospital?
Extremely critical.
All right, and I'm going to show you a photograph which has been introduced into evidence at states 23. This is how Mr. Markel appeared upon his arrival at the hospital.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm noticing some swelling and disfigurement to the face. If you could just hold that up and explain what it is that we're observing there.
There were two penetrating injuries, one to the mid forehead, one to the cheek, just inferior to the orbit or the eye. There was generalized swelling and bruising of both eyes and the mid face. He has a breathing tube and an ET tube that was placed during his resuscitation, and again, generalized bleeding from the nose, ears, and eyes.
What medical intervention was attempted to assist Mr. Markel?
Again, he had a breathing tube placed to establish an airway. He was maintaining his blood pressure on his own, but he did undergo full trauma evaluation and resuscitation, including laboratory values, imaging, and administration of IV fluids and basic life support.
Was Mr. Markel pronounced deceased under your care?
He was.
When was he pronounced deceased?
Approximately 12 to 14 hours following his admission.
All right, and so that would be July 19th?
Correct. I think just after midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning or thereabouts.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross,
No questions, Mr. Garcia.
take that on.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Any juror have a question of this witness? All right, you can step down. Do we need to keep her any further?
No, sir.
All right, anybody need her any further?
No, Your Honor.
You're excused. Thank you for being here. Call your next witness.
The state calls Dr. Anthony Clark.
All right, would you face the clerk and raise your right hand, please, sir?
You swear affirm testimony about giving this case, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I did.
All right, have a seat and slide up the microphone, please, sir.
Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
Dr. Anthony J. Clark, Anthony, A-N-T-H-O-N-Y-J, Clark, C-L-A-R-K.
How are you employed, Dr. Clark?
I'm employed by KWB Pathology Associates as an associate medical examiner for the District 2 Medical Examiner's Office here in Tallahassee. I also have duties as an autopsy pathologist for TMH, for Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare.
How long have you been employed in that capacity?
I started at KWB in 2007 on August 1st.
Could you tell us a little bit about your training and education?
I obtained my Bachelor of Science degree from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I did 2 years of animal research at MIT, and then I was accepted to the Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia. I graduated from the college and did a 2-year general surgical internship at New Britain General Hospital in New Britain, Connecticut. I then went to the Hartford Hospital in Hartford, Connecticut, and did 4 years of anatomic and clinical pathology. I then traveled down to Atlanta, Georgia, where I did a 2-year forensic pathology fellowship with the Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office and associated with Emory University. I graduated from that program and got my first job as the Southwest Regional Medical Examiner in the multi-crime lab for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Division of Forensic Science. I remained in that position from 1994 to 2007 and then traveled down to District 2. I am a licensed physician in the state of Georgia and Florida.
And what are your duties as a medical examiner here in Florida?
As a medical examiner, I'm involved with the death investigation. I'm the one that performs the examination of the decedent to determine the cause and manner of death.
How many autopsies have you performed in your career?
It's over 6,500.
Have you ever testified as an expert in a court of law?
Yes, I have.
How many times?
Over a couple hundred times.
And was that always in the area of forensic pathology?
Yes, ma'am.
What is forensic pathology?
Pathology is the study of tissues, whether it's plant tissue or human tissue, looking for the obvious signs of disease or pathology or abnormalities. Forensic pathology is the ability to present that in court.
Okay. Judge, at this time, I would tender Dr. Clark as an expert in the area of forensic pathology.
Either side wishes for to argue.
No objection.
Can't argue that experience, no, Your Honor.
All right, Dr. Clark, did you conduct the autopsy of Dan Markell?
Yes, I did.
When was that autopsy conducted?
The autopsy was performed on July 19, 2014 at 11:55 hours.
Where was the autopsy conducted?
This autopsy was performed at the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare morgue.
Did you take photographs during the course of the autopsy?
Yes, I did.
Would the use of those photographs assist in your testimony here today?
Yes, they would.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as States Exhibits 26 through 35, absent 27. So 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35.
Okay. Yes, I do recognize these photographs.
How do you recognize them?
These are the photographs I took at the time of the autopsy.
Are they fair and accurate photographs of the autopsy as you conducted it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Judge, at this time, I'd ask you to the evidence states, I believe it's 26 through 35.
You said you pulled 27, was your
And then
initial
I
comment.
just think I had it out of order, so it'll be 26 to 35.
Is there objection?
No objection, Judge.
All right,
No objection, Your Honor.
they'll be admitted.
May I publish?
You may.
All right, Doctor, I'd like to just kind of have you explain to the jury how an autopsy begins and then walk us through the autopsy of Mr. Markell using these photographs to assist you. So how would you begin an examination?
Well, actually, a medical examiner investigation starts with information. So I received the call about the death of this individual, and then they put the body in a body bag that's brought down to the morgue. And then I began by checking what's on the outside of the bag, and then open the bag and start taking photographs and start making my observations. In gunshot wounds, we always take x-rays because we're interested to see if there's any remaining bullets in the body, and if there are, where they are located. So we'll do x-rays on the shooting. We start on the outer, externally, documenting any clothing, personal effects, medical devices, injuries. Then we do things like height, weight, eye color, that kind of thing to show what the individual looked like. And then we start what's called the internal examination, where we open up the head, neck, chest, and abdomen. And if there's external trauma, what happened to the internal organs from that trauma, if any. Natural disease is a big factor in the cases that I do. Bad heart disease or lung disease, etc. We also collect specimens for toxicology. We collect specimens for DNA studies if needed, and whatever other ancillary studies may be needed. We fingerprint everybody now, and there's some other things like that.
I want to start with States Exhibit 26 and to explain to the jury what we're looking at here. I believe that
He's got the pointer.
States Exhibit 26 is an X-ray, what we call a AP X-ray of the head. You can see the top of the head here. This is the jaw, right side, left side. And within this, you can see that there's some wider spots here and here. These are the bullets that I eventually recovered. So I had an idea where this bullet is. Now I have an idea where this bullet is. Also, there's some fracturing going on here on the side of the face, which it's hard to point out from this distance. But so right now, this is the main reason why I'm getting these x-rays to show that there are bullets still in him and that they are still there and they're a good size too.
And you mentioned having extracted these bullets from Mr. Martell's body, but they've been turned over to law enforcement.
Yes, ma'am.
State Exhibit 27.
Okay, so the first one is basically front to back, and this is a side picture to show me exactly where this first bullet is here. So it was up here and it's towards the back of the cranial vault, okay? And then this one's right here, showing here, there's larger pieces here. But we're interested in gathering this bullet and this bullet right here.
And when you say larger pieces referring to this, is this part of the bullet as well?
Yes, ma'am, that looks like a large fragment there. Now remember that this is somewhat magnified to the way we take these x-rays, so that piece is not as big as it looks in real life.
State Exhibit 28.
State's Exhibit 28 is showing, this is what we call the identification photograph to show his face. Well, you want to turn it 90 degrees? Not just, yeah, I think it might be easier just to explain things, yeah. And so yeah, and we put the identifying tag down here with the case number, the date, and my initials should be down here. And we've cleaned up the face as best we can, but this is what we call the identification photograph. Now, in this identification photograph, you can see there's quite a bit of trauma to the face, and there's distortion of the left side of the face, quite a bit of swelling going on here, bruising going on inside the tissues here, what we call raccoon eyes or bilateral eye bruises here and here. There's a gunshot wound here, and there's a gunshot wound here. So there's two separate gunshot wounds that we're looking at here.
State 29.
State's Exhibit 29 is showing one of the gunshot wounds to the left cheek area. You can see it is right here. You can see the bruising in the tissue back here. This bullet actually traveled from here and wound up just under the tissues here inside, below this left ear here. Now, the interesting thing is these large areas of abrasion. They're irregular, and some are small, some are large, and they kind of scatter onto the ear, come in a band this way, onto the nose, and you can see that there's some on the upper neck here. This is what I called the report pseudo-stippling. Stippling is something that occurs from gunfire because there are burning and unburnt particles of gunpowder coming out. And when they hit the skin, that actually causes abrasions. Now, when you shoot through a door or a window, you're fragmenting the wood or the glass, causing other debris to fly out. So to me, this is a pseudo-stippling or glass abrasions from when the first bullet went through the glass and caused these injuries here.
State 30.
Stage 30 is showing the left side of the neck to emphasize the pseudo-stippling. Now, pseudo-stippling, again, tends to be more irregular and larger. When you get stippling from gunpowder, it's very minute and very, what do you want to call it, homogeneous in terms of the size.
So regular in terms of size.
Yes.
State Exhibit 31.
And can you blow that up? Well, this is the forehead area here. Could you turn it 90 degrees, though? That might be helpful just to,
This way.
no. The other way. Yeah, there you go. All right. So State's Exhibit, which was this? What State Exhibit? I'm sorry, I missed.
Okay, I'm sorry, 31.
31 is showing the forehead area. What we're seeing here is the second gunshot wound here. Okay. And you can see it's quite a bit of a mess here. And I'll explain to you in a minute why that is, but this is where the bullet ended here, and that's the bullet that winds up in the back of the inside of the skull that you saw in the x-ray, okay? So this one here, this is irregular because he was wearing a pair of glasses at the time he was shot. So just like I'm standing here looking at you right now, that bullet hit those glasses. And when he hit those glasses, and I believe there were plastic frames from what I could see in the pictures, they broke open the plastic and caused, like, you know, a cue ball hit and a racket balls to disperse the plastic, and that plastic went and just popped that hole. So you didn't get a nice round hole, but you got more of a ragged hole. there because of that. And also up here, if you could magnify that a little bit, can you move in? No? Okay. There was some fine stippling up in here. There's some kind of irregular ones up here, which may be part from the glasses being exploding here.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. Now you see all these little dots here? That is gunpowder stippling. Can you see the difference from the larger irregular abrasions? This is real fine stuff here. And to me, that puts the gun at a closer range, or there's no window there, or intermediate target as we call it. So that this puts it in a shorter range of gunfire. And that's usually up to 18 to 24 inches that you're seeing. Seeing that, it could be closer. The only way to really tell is to get the weapon, the same ammunition, and do some test firing from different distances, which the firearm people do and I don't.
Okay, so the smaller marks that we're seeing there were caused by the hot powder that came out of the barrel of the firearm.
The burning and unburned gunpowder, yes, ma'am.
And that's how we know that the gun was within 18 inches of Mr. Martell's head at the time it was fired.
Yes, ma'am, 18 to 24 inches.
And then the larger mark there, if am I understanding you correctly, that that was caused by glass or plastic from the glasses?
Yes, ma'am.
Stacy says at 32.
Okay, State's Exhibit 32 is showing the left eye area here. There's quite a bit of swelling here on both eyes, and that's usually due to the base of the skull, what I call the base of the skull being fractured and bleeding into the tissues, and it collects in the eyes. Also, there's the gunshot wound here, the regular one here, and the one here. Also, if you look at the eyes, and again, if you get the pictures in your hands, you can look at them better, but there's no stippling or glass injury to that because the glasses are actually protecting the glass from hitting his eyes. And then the second bullet hit here, that didn't cause any kind of injuries to the eyes.
Okay, so, dumb question, but the discoloration to the eyes don't indicate that he was in some kind of fist fight.
No, ma'am, that's just due to the base of the skull fractures.
So consistent with being caused by the gunshot wound.
That's correct.
Case Exhibit 33.
Okay, State's Exhibit 33, this is the back of the left mid forearm, about right here. The elbow is down here, the wrist is over here, so this is the back of his arm here. And what you're seeing here is a curvilinear or curved line deposit of soot, and then you're seeing pseudo stippling again. Again, this is not gunpowder stippling. I kept trying to see whether, I kept looking at it, trying to see whether this was really truly gunpowder stippling, but it's not. There's too much irregularity and difference in sizes of this. So I believe it was due to either glass or plastic from the glasses.
Right, and the dark mark is consistent with stippling from the gun?
The dark mark is soot, and that's a deposition from the gun itself.
And would that be consistent with Mr. Martell having his arm raised when the gun was fired?
Yes, ma'am. It's my opinion that after the first shot through the window, striking him here, causing all that glass to shatter and strike him on the face, that he reflexively brought up his arm in a defensive type posture, and that the gun was in range to cause, when he hit the glasses there, that when this shattered, it went on the back of the forearm here, and then there's a deposit of the soot there. Now, I don't believe that soot is from the barrel of the gun, but from what we call a cylinder gap. That there may have been a revolver used in this case, and that the gap between where the cylinder is and the barrel, gases can come out there and soot can come out there too, and that could cause this kind of curvy linear soot deposit there.
And would a soot deposit from a cylinder gap also be consistent with a close range shot as you previously described?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know where the arm was in relationship, but it had to be close enough that when the glasses got hit by the bullet, that shattering plastic struck the skin far enough. So if you were like this, I think that's too far away, but within inches of that area.
All right, and you described what your opinion is the first shot would be the one that came in the cheek and ended up near the ear area.
That's correct.
would that shot alone have been fatal, Mr. Martell?
No, ma'am, I don't think it, I know it wasn't, and he's got quite a bit of bruising there. It may have stunned him, and disoriented him, but I believe he was still alive to be able to put his arm up also and have this injury, associated with the shot to the, between the eyes there.
State Exhibit 34.
Okay, State's Exhibit 34 is a picture of the bullet. I always try to, we'll clean the bullet up and show the bullet itself. And you can see it's from gunshot wound number 2, which is to the cheek here. And if you compare it to the x-ray, you saw that it was kind of almost barrel shaped or squared off type of bullet, and it's pretty well intact here. So that's the bullet there.
All right, so gunshot wound number 2 is what you're calling it in this photograph, but it's your opinion that this bullet was fired first.
The gunshot wound number 1, yes, ma'am.
Okay. State Exhibit 35.
State's Exhibit 35, and you can see that this bullet's quite flattened out. This is the gunshot wound that went in between the eyes here and wound up in the brain back here. And in the x-ray, you saw that it was very flattened out, and that's what we recovered here.
All right, and this would have been the wound which caused Mr. Martell's death?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and is there any reason why the bullet in State's Exhibit 35 is so much more deformed than the one in State's Exhibit 34?
The bullet from gunshot wound number 2 and 34 hit mostly soft tissue. It did strike the bone, but it was going at a kind of like this and going along the bone. The other one was actually going through bone in this area here, had gone through the glasses too.
What, if anything, can you tell us about the trajectory of these bullets?
All I can talk about is the trajectory through the body themselves. And again, my orientation is the person lying on the table, what I call an anatomic position. They're looking forward, arms by their sides, toes pointed down. That's all I can tell you about that.
All right, so did you document as far as each shot, whether it was left to right, front to back, up, down, that kind of
Yes,
thing?
ma'am, I did. Okay.
Could you tell us, you may have already gone through it, but I'd like to go through that one more time. Let's start with what the shot that is, in your opinion, the first shot to be fired.
Okay, the first shot to be fired in the autopsy report again is gunshot wound number 2. I tend to start from top to bottom. That's the left cheek and face. And that traveled from front to back, very slightly down, and very slightly right to left. So it's going this way into the face.
All right, and the next one?
The one that I label as gunshot wound number 1 to this area here, what we call the glabella, went from front to back, slightly left to right, and slightly up. So it's coming in this way.
All right. And have you reviewed the scene photographs, including the ones of the window of Mr. Markell's vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I want to show you photograph number 8. Not finding 8, but I'm thinking 17 will do. Publishing State 17. You talked. Sir? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did. You spoke about the glass and how the glass created the pseudo stippling. Do you have an opinion as far as the glass and how it would impact the I think you called it an intermediate target. If you could explain what that means.
An intermediate target, it's just something between the muzzle of the gun and the final target. There's something in between. It could be a baseball cap, it could be a window, it could be a door, it could be a wall.
All right. And is the pseudo stippling that you previously described the evidence that you're relying on to indicate that the victim was shot through this glass?
That's correct.
Okay. And that's consistent with the image in State's Exhibit 17, which you also reviewed?
That's correct.
Okay. One moment, please.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Clark, what was your opinion regarding the cause of death in this case?
The cause of death was written down as gunshot wounds of the face, head.
All right, and what was your ruling as to the manner of death in this case?
The manner of death was a homicide.
No further questions.
Cross.
Good afternoon, doctor. My name is Mauricio Padilla. I represent Mr. Garcia. I'm going to ask you a couple questions about your testimony. Is that okay?
Okay.
In this particular case, did you use any trajectory rods?
I don't usually take pictures with rods in place. I probably did, but I don't remember specifically.
Could you explain to the jury exactly what a trajectory rod is?
It's a metallic rod that we use, or you could use any kind of materials, but then connect the dots basically. So you would take the rod, stick it in the entry wound, and follow it back to where it went into the brain, and that would show you the trajectory through the body there. Okay.
And whose decision would it be to use a trajectory rod or not to use a trajectory rod? Would that be your call as a doctor?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the decision not to memorialize the actual use of these trajectory rods, was that your decision?
Yes.
And in what percentage of cases do you memorialize the actual use of the trajectory rods as opposed to not using?
2 gunshot wounds like this, and the bullets are recovered in the body. They're not really useful because I can tell the direction by looking at them. A lot of times I'll use trajectory rods when you have multiple gunshot wounds that have been what we call perforating gunshot wounds. You got an entry and an exit, an entry and an exit, and I may memorialize those.
Did anyone provide you any information regarding the positioning of Mr. Markel when he was taken out of the vehicle?
I don't recollect. I know he was in the vehicle in the driver's side, but I don't know about his position.
Did you have any communication with members of either the state law enforcement or the FBI regarding the trajectory of the wounds in this case?
State or FBI? I do
Yeah,
not.
any law enforcement. Did you have any communication with any law enforcement regarding the trajectory of these wounds?
But yeah, the Tallahassee Police Department.
Okay. 1 second, please.
Okay.
Sorry. Just to follow up, who would it have been that you had communication with regarding the trajectory of these wounds?
Investigator Scott Cherry and William Cornegay were at the autopsy, so I would discuss the trajectories with them through the body. And then whoever read the report would know.
But direct communication with yourself, it would have just been the 2 individuals that you just discussed, correct?
Yes, sir, as far as I know. If there was any follow-up conversations, I don't know anything about them.
1 moment. There's an investigator by the last name of Yao. Sean Yao, did you have any communication with him?
Yes, okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you have communication with him regarding the trajectory of these rounds?
Yes. He read the autopsy report and asked me about them.
Okay, and how did that conversation go?
Jack,
We just-
hearsay?
Overruled.
Go, you can answer.
Yeah, we just talked about what the trajectory was through the body.
Okay, and when was that conversation? Did you have one conversation or multiple conversations?
Just one conversation. That was a couple of days ago.
Okay, and that was over the phone?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, he actually came by probably within the last 2 weeks. He came by the office and we discussed it, but we didn't really look at pictures or anything like that. And then we discussed it on the phone because he hadn't read the autopsy report yet.
okay, so he came in person
Mhm.
to your office to discuss the trajectory, correct?
Right.
And then he called you on the phone?
Right.
And you're saying that the reason that he called you on the phone was because when he went to your office to discuss the trajectory of these rounds, he still had not reviewed the autopsy report?
At that point in time, and I think he was picking up a CD with the pictures on it.
The CD of the pictures that we've just seen here today? That the jury
Right, the
saw?
autopsy photographs, yes, sir.
So So you're saying that around 2 weeks ago, when he went to your office, that Mr. Yao had not viewed those pictures and had not viewed the report. Is that correct?
I believe that's true, yes, sir.
And then you discussed it with him,
Right.
and then he told you, I'm going to review the report and I'm going to call you back. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say anything about calling me back, but he did call me back.
Okay, and so what was the purpose of that phone call, in your opinion?
Just to talk about the trajectory on that, through the body.
What about the trajectory?
What, to confirm that that's what I was talking about.
Because that wasn't discussed during your your in-person meeting?
Right, because he hadn't read the autopsy report yet.
Right. As a medical examiner, is it odd that at this late stage in the
That's
investigation?
not an appropriate question. Anything else?
One moment. Just one last question. When was your autopsy report available to law enforcement? If you can give us a date.
I finalized the autopsy on August 25th, 2014.
And is that around the time that you would have made it available to law enforcement?
Right, at that time, when I sign off on it, then it gets mailed out probably within 7 to 10 days after that.
Thank you so much, doctor.
No problem.
McManus,
No question, John.
redirect.
No, Your Honor.
All right, any juror have a question of this witness? All right, you step down. Do we need to keep him further?
He may be released.
Either side need him?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused. Thank you, Dan. Call your next witness.
Yes. State calls Len Harvey.
Sometimes in between witnesses, some jurors would like to stand up, stretch if you feel the need to do so. Feel free. Sometimes I like to stand up every once in a while, particularly after lunch. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a struggle. Do it face the clerk and be sworn, please, sir.
Swear affirm testimony about giving this, the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please.
I'm sorry.
Slide up to the microphone.
Sir, please state your name and spell your name.
Okay. It's Len H. Harvey. First name Len, L-E-N, middle initial H, and H-A-R-V-E-Y.
How are you employed, Mr. Harvey?
I'm the director and I oversee Premier Health and Fitness Center.
How long have you been doing that?
January would be 33 years.
All right. And are you familiar with the security video cameras that were present at Premier Gym around the time of July 2014?
I am.
And can you discuss let me ask you first if you've had an opportunity to review a disc of the images captured in reference to this case on your business's security cameras.
I have.
All right, I'm going to approach the state's 124. Mr. Harvey, are you able to recognize this disc as the disc that you reviewed in reference to this case?
Yes, I put my initials in there.
All right. And did this disc contain fair and accurate images as captured by the surveillance system there at Premier Gym?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Can you discuss the process that gave rise to these images? How does it work? How do the cameras work?
Well, we have 10 cameras outside on top of our building, and then we have 6 cameras inside our building.
All right.
And they record to the hard drive in my office.
Do the cameras all record continuously or are they motion activated?
No, they run around the clock.
All right. And you said the info that's collected by these cameras is stored in your office?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And for how long is the information stored in your office?
Approximately 30 days.
And were the cameras that you discussed that are located there at the gym, were those in proper working order back in July of 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Judge, at this time, I would ask to introduce the video States Exhibit 124.
Was there a date? What's that?
Are-
Do you know what the date of this was?
I believe, to the best of my knowledge, it was July 18th.
Is it noted?
Yes, July 18th, 2015,
14.
14, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any objection to States Exhibit 124?
No, Mr. Garcia.
No objection, Your Honor.
Be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll reserve publication of this item, and I have no further questions.
Cross.
No, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
All right. And juror, I have a question of this witness. All right. If not, you can step down. Do we need to keep him any further?
No, sir.
Anybody need him for any reason?
No, Judge.
All right. You're
No,
excused.
Your Honor.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next witness.
State calls Andrew Brown.
If you would face the clerk here and raise your right hand to be sworn, please.
You swear affirm testimony about giving this case to be true, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please, sir.
What is your name, sir?
My name is Andrew Brown,
All right, please spell your name.
ANDREWBROWN.
Where are you employed, sir?
Star Metro City, Tallahassee.
All right, is that the bus
You can,
system?
Point that microphone up just to here. We had a shorter witness there. So- anyway,
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
It's the city bus system?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and were you employed in the same capacity back in July of 2014?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
All right, are you familiar with the video cameras that are located on city buses or that were located on city buses at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, could you discuss where cameras are mounted on the buses?
The buses, you have 8 cameras on the buses. You have 2 on each side that face backwards. You have 1 that faces forward from the driver, so you can see it out in front. You have 1 facing on the driver, so they can see the fare box. You have 1 on the back door, and then you have 1 facing backwards.
All right, and are these cameras running all the time or do they get activated by motion? How do they work?
Once you start the bus up, they're running.
All right, and where is the data collected that's captured by these cameras?
It's on a hard drive that's located on the bus.
All right, and do you know approximately how long the data is stored on the hard drive of the bus?
The cameras with the 9 camera system, about roughly 30 days.
And do you know whether, and I want to direct your attention specifically to bus 505 and 707 on July 18th, 2014. Do you know whether the cameras on those buses at that time were in proper working order?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
And have you had an opportunity to review this, which I've marked as State Exhibit 125?
Yes, ma'am, those are my initials.
Okay, and is this disc, does this disc contain fair and accurate copies of the images collected by those buses on that date and time?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move an evidence takes 125.
Any objection?
None from the defense.
No objection. All right, will be admitted.
All right, Judge, I will reserve publication of this item and I have no further questions.
Cross.
I'd like to play this video, Judge.
I would object to the defense.
It's moved into evidence.
Play.
Judge, if we could just take a short break so I can make.
We're not going to take a break. The state's going to publish it at some point. I thought you were ready to publish it.
Well, I don't know.
All right.
We have to set up our material.
Right. We're not going to stop for that at this point in time. Do you have any cross to this witness?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Mr. Brown, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing good. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. So the images that are captured here are videos, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it's a live streaming video, correct? Real time?
Real time, yes.
And so the videos are situated throughout the bus, from the front of the bus to the back of the bus, correct?
Yes.
And what is the purpose of the videos?
Purpose for the videos in the bus is in case there is any sort of accident or incident on the bus, we're able to record and copy, give to police, or there's a complaint on the bus driver, we're able to view and see if the complaint is valid or not.
Now, what's the quality of the video? Is there like a specific level of quality that the video has?
As in, I mean, it's not HDMI, it's not high def.
Well, that's the question I had. Is it, what kind of resolution, if you have that knowledge, is the
I
video?
don't have that knowledge.
Now, the video that you have, these are your initials on this, sir, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, let me finish the question. I'm sorry. Exhibit 125, your initials are AJB on this, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've watched this video and you watched it with the government, correct?
Yes, sir.
You sat down in front of a computer with Ms. Kappelman. Was it Ms. Kappelman?
No, ma'am. No, sir.
It's okay. The facial, you're right. So you sat down with somebody from the state attorney's office, or was it a law
Yes.
enforcement officer?
State investigator.
Okay, so you sat down with the state investigator and they played the video for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what did the video show you?
It shows bus at the bus stop at McClay, I think it's McClay Boulevard and Thomasville Road. You see a Prius pass in front of it. As it goes forward, you can see the bus going to Thomasville Road going southbound.
Yes, sir.
The bus catches back up to the Prius, and you're able to see the Prius get into the left turn lane to make the left turn off of Thomasville Road onto Benton.
To your recollection, are you able to see inside the Prius?
As it's leaving, yes, you can see inside the Prius.
Okay, and what do you see?
You see two occupants, passenger, kind of fidgety, wearing a white shirt.
What about the driver?
Not able to see the driver clearly.
What about in the back seat?
Not able to see the back seat.
And is it a short sleeve shirt or a long sleeve shirt?
I was not able to tell.
Was there an emblem or a logo on the white shirt?
Was not able to see that.
Were you able to see the face of the person wearing the white shirt?
No, sir.
Could you tell if the person that was wearing the white shirt had a tattoo?
No, sir.
Could you tell if the person in the white shirt was holding anything?
No, sir.
How long do you see the image of the person wearing this white shirt?
Roughly about 5 to 10 seconds.
Now, 5 to 10 seconds is enough time. You would agree with me. Let's just go ahead and do it right now. So 5 seconds is starting now. That's about 5 seconds, correct? And during this time period, you say you see someone in the passenger seat wearing a white shirt.
Yes,
Are you able to make any kind of other descriptive, let me finish, sir, descriptive observations of this person in the passenger seat?
No, sir.
Now, this is which bus line?
This is going to be the Dogwood route, which is now currently the K route.
So the routes have changed since 2014 till currently,
Yes.
sir? Thank you. Now, is there another video that you see the Prius in, or is it just that one?
Well, it's the two separate buses. It's all on that one disc.
Okay. Now, one bus, as you said, captures it going one way, and the other bus captures it going another way, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in one video, you're unable to see, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you agree with me that in one video, you're unable to make any determination as to any of the occupants of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And in another one, it's your testimony for 5 to 10 seconds. You see something that appears to be a white shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
But no other specific factors that you can determine, right? You can't
No,
really
sir.
see anything else. To your knowledge, were were you shown pictures of the video?
No.
So you were just shown the video itself, correct?
Yes, sir.
And to your knowledge, and this video itself is the original video with the original picture that you saw, correct? It hasn't been modified or enhanced in any way to your knowledge?
It's been enhanced.
It has been enhanced. What does that mean?
They took it was because it's two separate videos. They made it into one video, and they've added in our system we can't add circles or to highlight anything, and they add some highlights to the vehicle.
So let's go over what that means.
We're talking to the witness.
Yes, sir, I am.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about what that means. The video footage, the original footage, was taken and altered, correct?
Yes.
And was it altered by your company or was it altered by the prosecution?
It was not altered by Star Metro.
Okay, so that means it was altered by the prosecution?
Yes, sir.
So this video itself, the one that we're going to show the members of the jury, the one that you have your signature on, is this the original or is this the altered video?
That is not the original.
So that means this is what?
The altered video.
No further questions.
All right, ma'am. No crossover, but if we could come
Redirect.
What? If we could come sidebar for objection.
Okay. All right, we'll take 10 minutes. Court's back in session. Jury's in the courtroom. Everybody be seated, please. Just take Vanderbilt, wish to cross as to Mr. Brown.
No, Your
All
Honor.
right, redirect.
No, sir.
All right, you can step down, Mr. Brown. We want to keep Mr. Brown or not?
No, sir. It's free to go about his business.
Y'all need him for any reason.
No, Judge. No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused. Your next witness, Ms. Capson.
State calls Brock Dietz.
So, I don't know who the juror was, but y'all did exactly right. If you need a break, just let us know. We'll take a break when you need to take one. So we got the parking arrangements and so forth getting in. All right, court administration treating you okay? All right, let me know if there's a problem with that. But, all right, we've made some county employees are having to park elsewhere, so you all have a place to park.
The senior one, right?
Yeah, y'all got priority. If you would face the clerk and be sworn, please, sir.
Swear affirm testimony about giving this case, be true, whole truth, and nothing but truth.
I do.
Have a seat, please. Slide up the microphone.
Please say your name and spell your name.
First name Brock, last name Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z,
How do you spell Brock?
B-R-O-C-K.
How are you employed?
Excuse me. I'm a detective with the State of Florida's Bureau of Fire, Arson, and Explosives Investigation
How long have you been so employed?
since 1994.
And as part of your duties there, do you look at video surveillance and attempt to clarify video surveillance?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Since 2002, for the past 17 years, one of my job responsibilities is to perform forensic video analysis.
And what training and experience do you have in that area?
Can I refer to my notes?
Sure.
Over the past 17 years, I've had the ability to be able to go not only through private vendors that sells the equipment and the software, other public agencies, FEI is one of them, and also other forensic scientific organizations that I've received training up under.
All right. And how many occasions have you had during the course of your employment there to attempt to enhance or clarify videos?
I've worked over 750 video cases
All
since
right.
2002.
And what types of things can you do with these videos?
The technique that I use is basically clarifying video. The way I like to describe it is simply the video has been recorded and I clarify it so that the judge and jury can make an educated decision on what they're seeing. A good way to describe it is if you turn off all the lights in this room and there's something being recorded, I simply just raise the luminance up so that you can see what's already there.
All right, so you can make the images brighter.
Brighter, identify objects or subject matter that needs to be identified by highlighting them. Enlarge them is another one. Perhaps slow down the video so that the judge and jury can see the events that are occurring.
Are you able to clip out portions of the video to, like if you had, 15 hours of video, but only 2 or 3 minutes that are important, would you be able to isolate those images?
That is correct.
All right. And what about drawing circles around things that, the prosecution wants to highlight? Is that something you'd be able to do?
Yes, ma'am. That's easily done in the software that's available to us.
All right. Were you asked to clarify some videos in reference to the case that we're here about today?
That is correct.
I want to specifically draw your attention to State's Exhibit 124, some clips from Premier Gym surveillance from July 18, 2014, and State's Exhibit 125, some clips from some city buses that were taken from that same day. Are you familiar with those State's exhibits?
I am.
And did you attempt to clarify or do any analysis on those State's exhibits?
Those specific clips, in my terminology, I clarified them.
All right, and tell us exactly what you did. Let's start with the gym surveillance clip.
Okay, with the Premier Fitness and Health, and I'll describe the software and that we use at the laboratory that I performed this analysis on. For this specific case, I was using Avid. Avid is a leading industry nonlinear editing software that gives us the capabilities to be able to take video footage or streams of it and make the edits that we need to do, such as the ASA had described. We can take out portions that extend too long.
What's an ASA?
Assistant Secretary.
Thank you. It's okay. Carry on.
And and also Avid that we have has a forensic software suite or a plugin called Detective that is made by Ocean Systems. Those plugins allow us to be able to highlight the subject matter, perform frame averaging, expand on a field of view that we need to concentrate on, such as magnifying it. And that is the software, again, that we use. Specifically for this case and the footage from Premiere, I redigitized the original footage. When I say redigitize is I took DVR decoder, which is part of the plugin of the forensic software that we have. I took that. It's a pixel for pixel records what you're seeing on the screen. I can take DVR decoder. This particular video was played in what they call a TVR player. It's like a VLC player or Windows media player. But there was one that was specific for that type of software, or the images that I received. It was called TVR player. The video was playing in it, and I took the plug-in DVR decoder and outlined the video and recorded it pixel for pixel. When I say pixel for pixel, I'm not losing any information. That allows me to be able to input that video file into Avid. What's occurring
Avid?
these days? Ma'am?
What's Avid?
Avid is the nonlinear editing software that we use to perform these clarifications on.
Okay, so you're copying it out of its player that comes with it that's prescribed with the surveillance system from the gym?
Correct.
And then plugging it into some other format?
Yes, ma'am. And we do that because these file formats will not import into Avid software. That is simply because every Monday, a brand new company comes up and that has a codec that is specific or that is unique. All these software programs, they're not able to read them. That's why they incorporate a lot of times their own little players, such as this one was TVR player again. So I'm not able to just import that file into my software. I have to, what I call, redigitize it to be able to bring it back in. And at that point, I can perform an analysis on it. Again, with this specific case, the state attorney's office identified a person of interest, the victim, that victim's vehicle, and the defendant's vehicle. Times were provided to myself by the state attorney's office in which I isolated those times. And at that point, when those vehicles came of interest, I did a clarification on them, basically highlighting them, showing them for a period of time, a few seconds, and then letting the video play from that point.
All right, so when for example, if we're talking about the green Prius, when that comes into view, you kind of pause the video for a second, draw a circle around it, and then let it play through. And then that clip ends, and we go to the next clip where either the victim or the Prius are in view, and the same thing happens. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and are the times that are shown on each of those clips that you've put into this presentation accurate and consistent with the times that were on the original?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And you didn't alter or change anything in like adding or taking out vehicles or people or anything like that?
No, ma'am, I did not. I simply highlighted the interest, the vehicles and the person.
All right. And what about in reference to the city bus video, States Exhibit 125?
Okay. That software or that specific video file, I was able to play it in Windows Media Player, in which most computers have. And again, I redigitized it, brought that back into Avid, and applied similar effects to it. The highlight showing the vehicles again, and then playing from that point.
When you say highlight, what is that?
That is when I drew a circle around the vehicle of interest or the person of interest.
All right, so we drew the circle around it and we kind of paused it, and then we took the clips out where the different things are in view. But other than that, did you do any kind of enhancing as far as, I don't know, turning on the lights like how you described earlier?
No, I didn't. I changed no luminance. Luminance is the value of darkness and highlights. The only thing that was applied to those was a highlight effect to be able to circle them.
All right, so basically we drew circles on these things.
Yes.
All right, and that's the bus video and the gym surveillance.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, no further questions.
Cross.
Detective Dietz, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
When the prosecution asked you to make these, I don't know what the right word is here, to enhance or alter the initial videos, okay? Would it be fair to say that at that point, the prosecution had a target as to who they believe was involved in this case?
When I was clarifying those video clips, yes, the state attorney's office identified the vehicle and the person of interest.
Okay. And would I be correct in assuming that, well, do you remember the day you were asked to do this? The specific date?
No, sir, it was over a span of about a month.
Well, do you remember when that month started?
August.
Of what year, sir?
This year.
August of 2019?
Yes, sir.
So the government, the prosecution in this case approached you 5 years. Would that be about correct? The incident took place in July of 2014. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes, sir. The state attorney's office approached me at that point. Prior to that, I did receive portions of the video from Tallahassee Police Department.
And you know when you received those portions? What the date was?
August the 5th, 2014.
And you prepared the video that the government's shown you, what's been previously marked as government's exhibit 124 and 125 in August of this year?
Yes, sir.
And how long does it take you to prepare these modifications?
Depending on the length of time that's being asked, anywhere from I could accomplish it in a day to a week.
So if the government would have come up to you a few months ago and said, listen, we need the modifications to be made from this original surveillance footage, it would take you a day to a week to provide what's been entered in the evidence as government's exhibit 124 and 125?
That's correct.
Do you have the original videos? The original footage?
No, sir.
And I'm going to ask kind of.
May I expand on that?
Yeah, I was going to follow up.
Okay. When I receive the evidence in, it's either through a CD, DVD, or a thumb drive. And at that time, I'll take the original, what's being submitted to myself, go ahead and put it on the hard drive, and then return that back to the submitter.
Okay, so you take what's given to you, download it on your hard drive, and then give the original back to, I assume, law enforcement or the state attorney's office, correct? But would it be true to say that you would have a copy of the original footage on the hard drive of your work computer?
Correct.
Do you do or make any kind of presentations where you do side-by-side analysis, where you do the original footage versus the altered footage, so a jury could see what you received versus what you're presenting to them?
I have, yes, sir.
Did you do that in this case?
No, sir, I did not.
Give me 1 second, Judge. Detective Beets, you indicated that you conducted the enhancement or the alteration, or let me rephrase that. For what's been previously entered into evidence as government's exhibit 124 and 125, when did you provide the prosecution with that? You said August of 2019?
The last copy was presented last week.
Last week. And when you say last copy, is that a different edit versus the one previous to that?
Correct.
So you're constantly, or you've made multiple edits to the original?
I've added things to I had the original video, and at the request of the state attorney's office, not new footage, but new awareness of the location of the vehicles or the person of interest have come about, and they've asked me to add that to my other clarifications.
And what was the most recent awareness, or what did they ask you to do most recently?
There was additional, may I refer to my notes?
Of course you can, sir.
Okay, I'm ready, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Detective.
They wanted to add some more information from camera 2 at the 9:24:19 mark, where the Prius comes in the screen. At that time, they also asked me to eliminate some of the victim sitting in the car, because I believe the victim stayed in his car at that point for 5 minutes. So I basically deleted some of that time frame from when he entered the car and then exited the parking lot in his vehicle.
And this is the Prestige footage, the Prestige, so
Premier.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Did I say Prestige? I apologize.
No.
It's long in the day and I didn't get coffee for lunch. So from the Premier Fitness, this is what you're referencing to? And from August 5th in 2014 to August 1st, the latest alteration that you made to the surveillance, how many times do you think that you have gone through the original footage and made alterations to it? Take your time, look at your report. Let me know when you're ready.
5 times.
Five times, sir?
Correct.
And would it be correct in me assuming that or whatever work that you have done has been at the direction of the state attorney?
That is correct.
And would it be fair to say that the work that, well, strike that question, Judge. I'm not going to ask the question I was going to ask. Give me 1 second, Your Honor, if I may. Well, if anyone was sleepy, I woke him up. Thank you, Detective. No further questions for Mr. Garcia.
McMahon,
No questions, Your Honor.
be direct.
So just to clarify, Ms. Beats, what is being referred to as alterations were drawing circles around items of interest in these videos
That is correct.
and pausing the videos at certain points so that you can see what it is you're drawing the circle around.
Yes, ma'am.
And also editing the videos so that portions of the video where the subject vehicle is not present are not going to be shown to the jury.
That is correct.
All right.
At
We
no point,
also-
at no point was the original ever worked on. I always work on a working copy. And so the clarifications that I made are just a working copy that's been provided to the state.
Okay. And is this something that you do in the ordinary course of your business to make the presentation of surveillance images more efficient for a jury to view?
That's what I believe as, a forensic video analysis is to make it clarify it to the point so that the judge and jury can make a good decision when they deliberate.
All right. Nothing further.
Any juror have a question of this witness? You can step down. Remain with us, please, sir. Call your next witness.
The state calls Michael Gilmore.
Judge, can we approach while she's getting that witness?
Okay.
You swear firm testimony about giving this case to the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
May I inquire?
You mind?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury and spell your first and your last name?
Certainly. My name is Investigator Mike Dillmore, the Tallahassee Police Department. It's Mike, M-I-K-E, Dillmore, D-I-L-M-O-R-E.
And how are you employed at the Tallahassee Police Department?
I'm an investigator and I do digital forensics.
Can you give us a little bit of information about your educational background?
Sure, I have a bachelor's degree in criminology and a bachelor's degree in education as well.
You said you do digital forensics. What does that mean?
Digital forensics is basically the process of acquiring and then examining electronic data with the ultimate goal of preserving any evidence in its original form, so without changing any evidence.
And how long have you been doing digital forensics?
About 8.5 years.
Did you have to receive any kind of specialized training to teach you how to extract data from electronic
Yes,
devices?
ma'am. I've had probably about 1,400 hours of training in computer-related courses, and a little over 1,000 of that has been specifically for digital forensics.
How many of the 1,400? I didn't hear you.
A little over 1,000, I believe.
And are you a member of any professional organizations that?
The International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists, it's called IASIS. Yes, ma'am.
And if you could just wait until I'm done asking my question so the court reporter can make sure she gets our questions and answers.
I apologize.
It's okay. In addition to the training that you've received, as well as the memberships you have, do you have any real life on-the-job experience in digital forensics?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I do every day, 8.5 years. I don't do anything else but digital forensics at the police department.
And have you ever testified in court with respect to that subject matter?
Yes, ma'am.
About how many times?
Approximately 20.
Are you familiar with what the cloud is?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the cloud?
The cloud, you can kind of consider it, you know, how you have like a USB drive for your, or a hard drive for your computer. It's like that, but on the internet. It's hosted on a network of servers by some company. Things like Google Drive, iCloud, Dropbox, those are cloud service providers where you can store your data on the internet so you can access it from somewhere else.
So it's basically just like a backup hard drive you'd have at home, but it's maintained
Somewhere else.
somewhere else in the country.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you create the ability to have your own cloud?
Certainly. You create an account with whoever you want to do it, whether it be Google or Apple or Dropbox. And then once you create that account, you can log in from pretty much anywhere and access your data.
Where's the, and you said this is the data you're accessing that's located somewhere else
Correct.
in the world. And different companies provide different clouds. You mentioned like Dropbox, Apple has the iCloud, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And can the cloud like sync amongst all your different devices?
Yes, ma'am.
And how so?
So take iCloud, for example. If you have an Apple ID, you log in, say with your iPhone, and then it syncs to iCloud. And then let's say you have an iPad as well. If you log in with the same Apple ID and set it up for syncing, then you can have the same data from your iPhone on your tablet as well.
Can you also then go in and decide what types of data you want synced? For example, if I have an Apple iPhone and I also have a tablet at home, I can choose whether I want to sync photos, for example, or contents, or really anything.
Yes, ma'am.
And the user can control what is synced and backed up on the cloud.
That's correct.
Let's say that law enforcement wants to get a hold of someone's iCloud. How would they go about doing that? Getting the contents of their cloud.
Right. You'd send legal process to Apple.
What is legal process?
Search warrant.
Is that a search warrant, that like a court would sign off on a probable cause affidavit?
That's correct.
In this particular case, did TPD issue a legal demand or a search warrant to Apple for the contents of a Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
Yes, ma'am.
And did I'm sorry, did Apple respond with the contents of Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
Yes, ma'am, they did.
And how does that response get provided to law enforcement?
In this case, it was provided on a USB drive. And then from there, I took that information onto my computer and started examining it.
Okay, so you received the information on a USB drive, like a flash drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And then how do you go about, and you did get that drive in this case.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do from there?
Okay. In this case, when I first got it, I pulled it into a program called FTK, Forensic Toolkit. It's a program that we use typically for computer forensics, and was able to extract or decode the information, create a report, and provide that to the investigator.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt you because you went ahead of.
I'm sorry.
What you get exactly from Apple.
Right.
What does that look like? Can you open it up and read it exactly the way that it is?
I see. It's a zip file, and it's not typically in a human readable format. You have to use a program to be able to see all of the data.
And I'm sorry, I believe you said that the first type of program that you used to try to make it more readable was the FTK report?
Yes, ma'am.
What is it? What is that?
FTK?
The forensic toolkit.
Right. It's a software program made by Access Data. And basically, like I said, we typically use it for computer forensics, but we can also pull in other types of data, such as data from iCloud or other things as well, to decode the information so that it's easier to read for us.
And what does the forensic toolkit give you once you've ran the data originally from Apple through the toolkit?
Right. I created a report that contained the data that it decoded.
Did you perform any other types of extraction or devices or any other programs that you ran this information from Apple through to make it more readable, digestible?
Yes, ma'am. I did. I used another program called Celebrite, Physical Analyzer. It's a software made by the company Celebrite. I pulled the contents of the zip file into Celebrite. It decoded the data. And Celebrite's typically used for mobile forensics. So this was kind of perfect, bringing that mobile data from the iCloud into Celebrate.
And the Celebrate program, is that something that's a commonly used tool by law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
And you know how to use that program?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have an FTK report and then you also have a Celebrate report.
Correct.
Do either of those programs that you're running this original data from Apple through, do they change the contents in any way?
No, ma'am.
They don't add anything to it or subtract anything from the iCloud?
That's correct. It decodes what it's programmed to be able to code, whether that's contacts, call logs, text messages, pictures, videos, etc.
Do these programs in any way organize the data so that you can go to a specific category of information you might want to look at? And
Yes, ma'am, and that's the purpose of them, so that it's a lot easier for us to read. So Celebrate in specific would sort these things into the contacts, where we can pull open the tab and see just the contacts, or pull open the call logs and see just the call logs all the way through.
I'm showing you what I marked by identification as exhibit 170. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And how do you recognize it?
It's a disk that I created, and it has my signature on it.
And what is contained on that particular disk?
This is the Celebrate report that I created from the Apple search warrant response for the iCloud.
And I probably should have started with that one. I'll show you next, State Exhibit 171 for identification. Do you recognize that disk?
I do.
And what's contained on that?
This is the actual zip file that we recovered. I made a copy of it, put it on this disk, and it has my signature on it.
So that is the exact response from Apple to your search warrant for Charlie Ailes.
Yes, ma'am.
And the 170, excuse me, Your Honor, that we just looked at, that was after it's been run through the Celebrate report.
Correct.
And finally, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 172. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
This is the FTK report from the Apple search warrant response.
And all of these disks you created yourself from the original evidence that you created?
That's correct.
And you initialed them all with your signature?
I did.
Now, once you've received that response for the search warrant for the contents of Charlie Adelson's iCloud, and then you use your programs and your skills to get the FTK report and the Celebrate report to make them more readable, then what do you typically do with those CDs with that information on?
Right. Whether it's a CD, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. I don't typically know all the details of the case. The case investigator does. So I typically give those reports to the case investigator to go through to determine what's relevant to their case.
So you don't typically review them for relevancy or evidence that you think may be of value to a particular investigation?
That's correct.
Okay, nevertheless, did I ask you to go through certain areas of Charlie Adelson's iCloud and basically look for certain text messages between Charlie Adelson and Catherine McVanois?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you in fact do that?
I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm showing you what I've marked for identification purposes as State Exhibit 68 and 69. Do you recognize those two photographs?
I do.
And how do you recognize them?
These are pictures that were in the images. Remember how it decodes it into certain categories under images. These two pictures were in there. Sorry.
Okay, and those are accurate photographs taken directly from Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
Yes, ma'am.
They haven't been changed or altered in any way?
No, ma'am.
Next, I want to show you what I've marked for identification as State Exhibits 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, and 67.
Your Honor, if we could see those, there may be an objection.
Show them the document.
I'll show them again. Yes, sir.
object to 61, 62.
Yeah.
You may.
Sorry, they're out of order. So States Exhibit 61 through 67, do you recognize those items?
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you recognize them to be?
Text messages from the iCloud search warrant response that I processed.
And then are those text messages between different individuals directly from Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
Correct.
And are they accurate as far as what Apple provided in response to the search warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the text message threads, are the dates and times on all of those accurate?
From what I gathered from the search warrant response, yes, ma'am.
Based on what they gave you?
Yes.
Based on your review of Charlie Adelson's iCloud contents, did the phone number 786-564-1312 appear in the iCloud?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am.
And how is that phone number 786-564-1312 labeled?
How is it what? Don't
Labeled?
answer the question, please.
Labeled.
Objection.
What goes that for? Maybe you should re-ask your question, Ms. Norris.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to go back one step. Is the phone number 786-564-1312 in Charlie Adelson's iCloud?
Yes, ma'am.
And how is that number saved as the name associated with that
And we
phone?
know there's an objection to that I've overruled.
KD,
And how is that spelled?
KADDIE,
Do that again, I'm sorry.
KADDIE.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross. Garcia.
Nothing from Mr. Garcia.
McManus.
Briefly. Investigator, good to see you again.
You too, sir.
You're gonna have to explain this to me like I'm a child. So I've got an iPhone.
Yes, sir.
Somewhere up there is all my data, my contacts, my emails, my text messages, my multimedia messages. Those are ones with photos and videos.
They are.
My notes, my reminders, all of that stuff, right?
If those are the things that you've chosen to sync on your phone, they're not up there. They're on a network of servers somewhere.
All right.
Yes.
So it's not actually on the phone. It's somewhere. It's not actually up in a cloud. It's stored somewhere in
But
Cupertino,
it's still on your phone as well.
but it's also on the cloud, is what you're saying.
Correct.
All right. So I'm able to look at all that data through my phone because there's software in the phone that will organize it.
That's correct.
There's a contacts icon, there's a text message icon, there's a call log icon. That's how I can navigate through it, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, these programs, you send a subpoena. Now, you didn't send the subpoena in this case, though, did you?
The search warrant, no, sir, I did not.
That was Investigator Sherry Bennett.
Correct.
But you get the stuff back.
Correct.
You get a dongle, is that the
USB drive.
USB drive? So you get that back and it's got all the data. The data that I get from the cloud onto my phone, you get that data for Charles Adelson.
Correct. The data that was synced, yes.
But you don't have a phone to interpret it.
Correct. That's why I use my software.
That's what FTK and Celebrite does.
That's correct.
Celebrite's a little bit more advanced though, right?
In regards to mobile forensics, yes, sir.
when you say mobile forensic, again, like I'm a child.
Understood. In regards to mobile devices such as cell phones, tablets, GPS devices, those type of things, yes.
You're able to see more information.
Yes, sir.
You're able to see deleted WhatsApp messages,
Sometimes, yes, sir, if they're decoded.
deleted text messages.
Yes, sir.
So if somebody has an iPhone and they delete a chat log, they can't see it on their phone anymore.
Correct.
But when you look into Celebrate, you can see it.
Sometimes, yes, sir.
Now, in this case, you received Charles Adelson's information,
Yes, sir.
right? And as you told Miss Norris, you took a look at it.
Correct.
And within there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, around 300,000 text, MMS, iMessage, WhatsApp messages.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I have to look at a report to be sure of that. But
Do you have that report on you?
on my computer out in the hallway, I do.
Your Honor, would you allow the witness to go get his computer to refresh his recollection?
I mean, does it matter whether it's 300,000 or 200,000? I mean, do you have a ballpark figure?
There were quite a few, yes, sir. There
In
were
the
a lot,
hundreds of thousands?
probably.
All right, fair enough. And again, that included text messages, MMS messages, iMessages, WhatsApp messages,
Yes, sir.
and it included a bunch of deleted messages.
I believe it did, yes, sir.
Now, the prosecutor asked you to look at select messages between Charles Adelson and Catherine McBanois.
Some, yes, sir.
Let's give a time frame first. This is years worth of data.
Correct.
Actually, all of his iCloud data, right?
Yes, sir.
There's no limit when you send the subpoena to Apple. They send everything since the inception of the account.
And whatever they still have, correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this went back to the early part of this decade.
I believe so, yes, sir.
So around 2010, 2011.
Again, I don't typically go through and do the analysis of the data. I typically let the investigator do that.
Now, I'm not going to ask you for the contents of the messages that you've just identified.
Okay.
But in all the messages that this government asked you to take a look at, and how many of them does Catherine McManama talk about being involved in a murder?
I don't, and the ones that she asked me to look at,
Yes.
none.
There's only specific conversations that she had you take a look at, right?
Correct.
Not all of the messages in between Catherine and Charles Adelson.
That's correct.
You explained to Ms. Norris how normally you would give, let's back up to the explaining to me like I'm a child again. You run your program, you do a Celebrate report.
Yes, sir.
Then you're able to save that onto a CD.
Or DVD or Blu-ray, depending on how big it is. Yes, sir.
Now, whoever has that CD, they can put it in a laptop, and then they can navigate the data just like I would navigate on my cell phone.
Correct.
But it's got more advanced search functions, right?
That's correct.
You explained to Ms. Norris how you normally give that CD over to a case investigator so that they can take a look at it.
Correct.
Did you do that in this case?
I did.
Who did you give it to?
I don't know for specific, but I believe I gave it back to Investigator Bennett, but I'm not positive of that.
What about Special Agent Patrick Sanford?
I may have, I truly don't recall.
What about retired investigator Craig Isom?
Again, I don't recall who I specifically gave it to.
What other Apple iCloud data were you given in this case to evaluate?
I believe I was asked to look at Ms. McManus as well.
Catherine McBanois.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Same thing, years worth of data,
Yes, sir.
thousands, hundreds of thousands of messages.
A lot of data, yes, sir.
And again, this isn't just text messages. This is call logs, calendar events, contacts,
Yes, sir.
reminders, internet searches.
Correct.
Basically, anything you do on your cell phone through Apple is going to show up
If it's synced, yes, sir.
in response to that subpoena.
Yes, sir.
And you receive that data.
Yes, sir.
Did this state attorney's office ask you to identify any messages in her phone?
No.
So no messages or no information tying her to a murder in the year's worth of data off of her cell phone.
Again, I didn't go through it.
You're saying that's
If I could respond.
Well, it's outside the scope of direct examination. Move on.
That's all, Your
I
Honor.
sustain the objection. I sustain the objection.
That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Right.
Sir.
Redirect.
Investigator Gilmore, were there many investigators at the Tallahassee Police Department and the FBI working on this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And did y'all spread the tasks amongst different individuals on different roles you would take on in this homicide
Yes, ma'am.
investigation? Okay. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
You can step down. We need to keep him further.
Yes, John.
Do you want him retained?
Yes, sir.
All right, you remain under the rule of sequestration. Investigator, can he go about his business?
Yes,
You want to say, okay. Did you have another brief witness?
Yes, sir. The state calls, yes, thank you. State calls investigator Marcia Rodriguez.
Okay. You base clerk can be sworn, please.
You swear to say testimony about giving truth, the truth, full truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God? Yes, ma'am, I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you please introduce yourself to the jurors?
Hi, my name is Marcia Rodriguez.
And can you spell that for us?
Sure, it's MARCIARODRIGUEZ.
Where are you employed?
At the Tallahassee Police Department.
Do you work in a certain department or division?
I'm attached to our Special Investigations Unit as a digital forensic investigator,
How long have you been with TPD?
over 25 years.
And what do you do in the digital forensics section?
So when an investigator or an officer has some sort of electronic device or storage media that they think may contain some sort of evidence, they bring it to me and I evaluate it to see if there's anything of value on it.
How many, and when you say electronic like devices that you're analyzing for?
Put that microphone back in front of you, would you please, Ms. Norris?
Yes, sir. When you say you're examining like items of evidence to see if there's anything you want to pull off of them, like a cell phone, could that be any electronic device, a cell phone, a tablet, a laptop?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And approximately how many electronic devices have you extracted information off of?
I've worked on over 1,000 phones.
Okay. And do you use different kind of programs to extract that data?
Yes, ma'am.
What types of programs do you use?
The primary program that we use is Celebrite. We use a couple other ones, but that is our primary tool.
And you trained on how to use that tool?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you perform a digital extraction or a Cellbrite on a phone belonging to Wendy Adelson?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall what type of phone that was?
It was an iPhone 4. Apple.
An Apple iPhone 4?
Yes, ma'am.
When you perform a Cellbrite extraction on a phone, does it change any of the contents inside of the phone itself?
No, ma'am, it does not.
Okay. Why would you do a Cellbrite extraction rather than just looking through the phone?
So one of the things that we do is we make sure that we don't alter the device that we get. We try and keep in the state that it's originally found in. And so if we manipulate and kind of flip through pictures and text messages like that, we may change something. Also, one of the things that we use a forensic tool for is so that we may, if something's been deleted, if something's, there's a hidden file that the user can't see or they've hidden from view, we may not see it. So we use these tools, and sometimes the tools are able to gather that information for us.
When you do the extraction using Cellbrite, does it basically spit out like a PDF report that you can then flip through and look at to see what was contained in the phone?
We use the software that you use to do the processing analysis of the raw data that comes from the phone. It gives the opportunity to create a report. Yes, ma'am.
A Cellbrite report.
Yeah, a Cellbrite extraction report. Yes, ma'am.
And that extraction report categorizes different things. For example, puts all the call logs in one section, all of the text messages in one section, and so forth.
Yes, ma'am. It categorizes it.
Okay. And you can also pull out the contact list. Like if I have phone numbers saved in my phone, like my husband or my mother, it would show up the contact name and then the phone number associated with that contact.
Yes, ma'am. How is it entered in the phone? Yes, ma'am.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You bet.
showing you what I previously shown the Senate Council. And marked for identification as States Exhibit 126. Do you recognize what that item is?
Yes, ma'am, this is the disc that I placed, the report that I created, the Celebrate report for Ms. Abelson's phone.
And that is an accurate Celebrate report directly from Wendy Abelson's iPhone?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't make any changes to it?
No, ma'am.
And do you recognize that disc because you initialed it underneath the pretty label that we put on top?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, this time I offer States Exhibit 126.
Is there objection?
Yes, Your Honor. Sidebar?
Okay. Shaking papers. Trying not to. She's listening to me and I'm rattling papers on the microphone. All right, so anyway, sorry. So I've admitted, I believe the correct numbers are 70, 71, 72, and 74 over objection. Do I have the numbers correct, Ms. Norris?
Yes, sir, 70, 71, 72, and 74.
Okay, probably need to get the witness to identify those items.
Yeah, I could.
You right?
I'm going to show you first States Exhibit 70, and what is contained in this particular exhibit.
It looks like a, two different contacts from the report that I created.
So these are from the Cellbrite extraction of Wendy Abelson's phone. These are her contacts, who she has listed and phone numbers stored in her phone.
These were the contacts, yes, that were sampling of the contacts that were in the phone.
And contacts for whom, if you could just.
Looks like Charlie and Dad's cell. And this appears to be another contact extraction for Mom's cell.
And do each of those three contacts, Mom's cell, Dad's cell, and Charlie, have photographs that are associated with the contact name and phone number?
Yes, ma'am, they do.
Next, I want to ask you about States Exhibit 71. Does this exhibit contain a phone number of interest in this investigation?
It appears to be a page from the contacts. I don't know specifically.
Does it contain a contact name and phone number associated with that name for a jitters?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
In States Exhibit 72, what is contained in that?
This is part of the report that I created. It's the beginning of the call logs section of the report.
And do those contain the call logs from Wendy Abelson's phone on or about July 18, 2014 and previous and prior to that?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
But that's not every call log ever from her phone, just a sample.
Yes, ma'am, just a sample.
And then finally, in States Exhibit 74, what's contained in that document?
This is also a part of the report that I created. It's showing a sampling of the voicemails that was taken from the phone.
And again, are the dates on that approximately July 16, 2014 to July 18, 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And in any of these exhibits, has anything been deleted or removed or
No, ma'am.
taken away? I'm not sure if I asked you this yet, but when you do the extraction, the Cellbrite extraction report, does it tell you the phone number for the phone you're extracting data from?
This report did. The extraction listed the phone number for the phone that I extracted, this Apple iPhone, as 954 803-0079.
All right, thank you, Investigator Rodriguez. I don't have any more questions.
Yes, sir.
Cross, Garcia.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, investigator. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm well, thank you.
One of the points that you were discussing during your discussions with the government was that you were concerned when you transfer the data that you don't want to manipulate any of the photos or any of the data, correct?
That's correct.
And that's because the original photographs or videos, you don't want them to be manipulated or altered, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
McManus.
No cross here.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, any juror have a question of this witness? All right, you may sit down. Do we need to keep her further?
No, Judge, not for Mr. Garcia.
Not for Ms. McDaniel, Your Honor.
I would like to keep her under subpoena, but she
Okay.
can go about it.
You remain under the rule of sequestration, investigator.
Yes, sir.
All right, be a good time to break. This would go ahead and mind. Captain,
Judge, may we approach?
I think we have a brief witness that's be here momentarily. If you want to stand up for just a minute, I misunderstood. I thought they had said that we had run out of witnesses. We'll have just one brief witness before we break. All right, everybody be seated, please. Let's come back to order.
Oh, everyone stood up like a stretch.
It's my understanding that the state wishes to recall Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
All right, you remain under oath, Mr. Brown. Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please, sir.
Oh, look who's back. Oh, he's
Mr.
back.
Brown, I'm holding in my hand a thumb drive, which I'm going to figure out how to mark as State's Exhibit 173. Have you had an opportunity to review the contents of this thumb drive?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do that since you previously testified just an hour or so ago?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and does this thumb drive fairly and accurately capture the original footage from the bus, the two buses that are in question during the times we talked about in this case?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
All right, so the footage on here isn't in smaller clips, it's the whole thing, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and it doesn't have the circles around it.
No, ma'am.
All right. Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's Exhibit 173.
Judge, I'd like to allow you to go with this.
You may.
Good afternoon again, sir. So this apparatus, how do you know that this is the original?
I watched as they downloaded it.
I'm sorry?
I watched as they put it on there.
Okay. You watched as they, and when you say they, you mean the government, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you watched as they downloaded what?
The clips of the buses.
Okay. And was that from the original information that you gave them, or was this from their computer?
That was from their computer.
Okay. So the question I'm asking you is, when they came and they originally subpoenaed and got your disk, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Okay. So let me ask it this way. When the government sent you a subpoena for this data, did you provide it on a CD?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you see that CD upstairs?
No, sir.
Okay. Would I be correct in saying that the government had an icon on a computer which they downloaded to this zip drive and they told you that this was the original, correct?
Yes.
But
I viewed it.
I'm sorry?
I viewed it.
Okay. But are you certain that this is the same footage that you provided them in 2014?
Yes, sir.
I'm satisfied, Judge.
McManus.
No, nothing, Your Honor.
He's
Any
looking at
redirect?
it to say what the
All right,
hell.
173. Is there objection to 173?
No, Judge.
State's Exhibit 173 will be admitted. All right, you can step down. We excuse Mr. Brown now.
We may, yes,
All right,
thank you.
anybody need him?
Again,
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're excused, Mr. Brown. All right, we good stopping point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We've got a little more work to do, but probably be a good place for us to stop with y'all. Don't listen to any media accounts, don't read the newspaper, don't talk to anybody about the case, just leave your notes where